Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I want to discuss MicroStrategy and Bitcoin and discuss the whole topic about shorting MicroStrategy because I feel that even with Bitcoin going on its rise for the past week, there isn't that much of a euphoric push in terms of people saying now is the time to get back into MicroStrategy or this or that. Instead, what I'm actually seeing is talk about the constant underperformance by MicroStrategy in relation to Bitcoin. MicroStrategy has always been seen as a leveraged bet on Bitcoin, and that if Bitcoin were to go up, MicroStrategy would go up that much more, and vice versa on the way down. Now, on the way down, that's obviously been very much verified by the action in the past year. As we kind of look on the chart here, let me just bring this up. So, if we kind of look at MicroStrategy here, even coming off from the bottom, right, from pretty much last Wednesday was the beginning of this bull push, right? So we're up about 31%. Let's actually not include today so far because it's still the day hasn't been decided on. Let's go the first 3 days, because that's when a lot of the talk has been happening, right? So basically, we're looking at around a 26% push by MicroStrategy. Let's look at IBIT as an ETF, since it's basically open all the same hours as MicroStrategy. In this case, if we were to look at those exact same dates of the same period, we're looking at around, what do we have here? About 18 and change, right? So 18 and change, and just to verify this number, about 26 and change. Okay. So there has been some level of outperformance by MicroStrategy for those 3 days, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of last week. It's not a massive outperformance, especially when you consider the fact that MicroStrategy is down from its peak, 77%, from this other peak, 72%, right? If we look at IBIT here, from this peak, basically, it's down about 36%. So it's down half of what MicroStrategy is down. So you would have expected MicroStrategy, obviously, to go up a lot more than it's gone up so far, considering it was down more than double that of pretty much Bitcoin. But we haven't been seeing that, and because of that, people have been speaking about shorting MicroStrategy, right, as a bet here, because people see that it's not as aggressively moving up as much as it should be. So why not short something that's underperforming? I mean, listen, I'm always a big believer in that. I think that definitely works. But I do feel like that is way too premature of a bet to make for two reasons. The first being, well, Bitcoin can continue pushing up higher, right? So we have to keep that in mind. We have no clue where the roof on Bitcoin is. Where will it stop pumping? Today, as we have this conversation, it's currently making highs in the day. Again, we're going to be looking at IBIT as an alternative to Bitcoin, only because it's open the same hours as MicroStrategy, so it's easier for us to kind of compare the dates and not deal with that weekend action and so forth. Bitcoin's performing way better than the rest of the equity markets the last couple of days, right? This is pretty much Bitcoin the last couple trading days, right? Compare that to the SPX, for example, right, which has been going down. So if anything, we've been seeing outperformance by Bitcoin relative to the rest of the market. So as a risk on asset, Bitcoin is looking super strong. So that's clear. So just like straight up shorting MicroStrategy without being long any other Bitcoin elsewhere doesn't look like a great bet when this particular asset, Bitcoin, is doing so well. And then the other issue with the idea of shorting MicroStrategy this early on, I would say, is the fact that everybody's pointing that out, right? That you can't really escape the idea being pushed that MicroStrategy is struggling right now, that it's underperforming, and because of this and because of that. Now, again, a lot of that is because they have been actively diluting shareholders on a weekly basis for almost 2 months now. So every share does technically own less Bitcoin. All that makes sense, and then people are pushing that all over social media and bringing attention to it. And normally speaking, before the market likes to make a big move, so let's say in this case back to the downside for MicroStrategy, it likes to shake people off. And what's the best way to shake people off from this idea of trying to play on this underperformance? Well, the best thing that the market can do is actually first have MicroStrategy outperform like crazy for a little bit of time, not even a whole lot. I'm talking maybe for a couple days. Get the people who have the thesis that MicroStrategy will continue to underperform. Get those people out of that trade first before we reverse lower. That's what I would personally be looking for as the trigger, right? I would like, it's like a two-step type of thing. I would like to see MicroStrategy. So let me show you this, right? So I kind of had Claude kind of build this out. And let me make sure that I'm not blocking anything. Okay, so this is pretty much since June 11. We can see the underperformance of MicroStrategy versus, this is IBIT. Yeah, it says Bitcoin, but I had Claude use IBIT here. You can see where the spread is. And you can see that up until even on Friday, right? So we had this outperformance originally, but then I once again began underperforming. Since June 11, if you indexed both MicroStrategy and IBIT, you can see that MicroStrategy is pretty much flat since June 11, and IBIT is up over 20%. Again, this is going to the closing values of this past Friday. Today's Monday, August 24. So clearly, we haven't seen great signs of outperformance, right? We had a smaller action here, but it has been struggling to prove to us that it's going to outperform. I personally want to see, so today so far, from the looks of it, MicroStrategy is outperforming Bitcoin, right? MicroStrategy is currently up almost 5% on the days. I look up top over there, and IBIT is up about 2.5%, right? That's what you'd kind of expect. That's what a lot of investors, long-term investors of MicroStrategy were kind of expecting, to have that doubling. And we're seeing a bit of that today. And I would personally like to see that go on for longer, once again, to kill that narrative that MicroStrategy is stuck in this permanent cycle of underperforming. If we can get some outperformance, once I see that happen, what I want to see next after that is obviously that outperformance to end. Either it's just matching the performance or going back to underperforming. Once I see that underperformance, that's actually what's going to be the trigger for me in terms of getting into this trade. Now, with that being said, if Bitcoin continues to outperform the rest of the market, again, today is a great example of this. You know, Bitcoin is up, say, 2.5% right now on the day. NASDAQ is down 1.3% on the day. NASDAQ, obviously massive risk on asset. Bitcoin also supposed to be a risk on asset. It's doing great, so we have to always keep that in mind. But what I would personally be interested in doing is to probably go like deep in the money and let's say buy deep in the money calls on IBIT, a couple months out, maybe 2-3 months out, and then deep in the money puts on MicroStrategy. That is how I would that's how I would play the pair trade between the two. Obviously, there is a cost, you know, getting into that trade, right? No matter how deep in the money you get, you will have to deal with data, you know. But again, if we're going for something that's maybe like 0.9 delta, right, like pretty far into the money. So if I just kind of like look at IBIT here, let me just bring that up. Let's say if I were to put that trade on today, right? So I would go for something like November 20th. And so for IBIT, I would be going long, because again, we're looking for that day to come when we do believe that underperformance by MicroStrategy will actually begin. So if we set this up, let me see the delta. So yeah, so in this case, probably something like a $33 strike. The spreads are pretty tight, as a matter of fact, which is nice. So somewhere right here is where I would be buying it if I were doing this today. On MicroStrategy, if I would go to the same date. So then for MicroStrategy, I'd probably open up something like a 200 put, you know, deep in the money again, if that was today. That's what I would open up. And again, you would get paid here only if, for the most part, in the event that Bitcoin pulls back. Bitcoin pulls back, and then you expect MicroStrategy to basically go down 2-3x quicker than that. If Bitcoin were to continue going up, you would pretty much end up losing, I would say, on both trades, I would imagine, unless MicroStrategy really lags to the upside. I think that would be the only way for the trade to work out, but this trade will still be bearish Bitcoin, in my opinion, and it'd benefit the most if Bitcoin were to go down. And I think that would be a fine trade to take. And I think when I do take that trade, I'll let you guys know. But it's a trade that we have to wait with patience because there's too much attention on it right now. And I think even today, I think people being caught off guard by out of the blue, MicroStrategy actually doing super well because it was actually underperforming early this morning when the cash session opened up just like 45 minutes ago. It was underperforming. Bitcoin was up like 1.5 on a day. MicroStrategy was like up like 20 basis points. But now it's actually doing super well. So I want to see this for a couple more days, or even longer, however long it takes. Obviously, once that outperformance comes to an end, then we start seeing it flatten, and then we start seeing underperformance, and we may even give up price levels when it comes to underperformance, meaning that maybe Bitcoin is down. When I say Bitcoin, I mean IBIT. It's down 1.5% on the day, and MicroStrategy is down 4% on the day, right? That's obviously massive underperformance. That's pushing our thesis forward, right? And then as a disclaimer, I do want to point out, I do have 2 crypto positions on, which I got in as earning failures into MicroStrategy and into Circle. I have this long position on MicroStrategy, which I basically sold the $95 calls, bought the 105 calls. That sounds like a bearish position, but I bought double that of the 105 calls. So I'm actually net long on those. As you can see, 20 contracts of the 105 calls, and then sold 10 of the $95 calls. So this position is currently in the money for me, and I plan to continue monitoring it before taking it off piece by piece. And then this is the other crypto position I have on Circle. This was also an earnings failure that has been working out pretty well so far. This one I just own straight shares, 400 shares of it, which is currently up $9,600. But that's my take on the situation. If you found this video remotely helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more content such as this one. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Till next time.